make sure to follow us on Instagram at Whistlethrowers. It's a great way to interact with our show. Our DMs are always open for questions, topic discussions, and more. You will be able to find our new episodes and other announcements there. The pending trade deadline that looms in a couple months. I think that the Lakers will deal LeBron James away from their team this.
All right, thanks for tuning back to the Whistlethrowers podcast. This is Jack Mubarak, joined by
Jack Slaymaker
and Aiden Tiksinski.
All right, so we're going to do it a little differently this time. We're going to recap from the polls we had on our story the last couple weeks. Let's start off with the one that we all split on. It was the Anthony Davis ranking amongst the league. And I kind of messed up with this poll because I didn't leave an option for like him being in the top 10. Mm-hmm. My bias kind of crept in. I didn't think that there was a scenario he is top 10.
Did someone...
No, but I remember some people that answered probably would have answered top 10.
Okay.
Just based off what I've heard them say in the past. Yeah. Let's start there. So the poll was, where do you rank Anthony Davis amongst the league? And the options were 11 to 20, 21 to 30, and 30 plus. Mm-hmm. I think there are 30 players that I would rather have over Anthony Davis. And you guys thought differently.
Yeah. I think I'm pretty sure I voted 21 to 30.
Yeah, you voted 21 to 30, and Aiden put 11 to 20.
Okay, so that's cool that we all have different opinions. Yeah. Why don't you start, Jack? Because I think that yours is the most, not outlandish, but like bold of those three. You know, I don't think it's super bold to say that he's a 21 to 30 or 11 to 20. I don't think that's super bold. But I do think saying outside of the 30 is pretty bold. Not that I disagree with that. I'm just saying that it is pretty bold. I think that would ruffle a lot of people's feathers.
Yeah, so my reasoning for it was I literally went on ESPN and I didn't go roster through roster. I just looked through like team logos and I'm like, okay, there's 3 guys on this team I'd rather have. And I did that with the Sixers. I'd have the Sixers big 3, all of them over him. Mm-hmm. I'd have KD and Kyrie Irving over him.
Yeah.
I'd have JT and JB over him.
Yes.
So it's like, what, 7 right now?
7.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the same thing and just look at the logos. Okay, so we're at 7. Milwaukee, I'll go Giannis right now. I may circle around and go Middleton.
I'll go Holiday too.
You would go Holiday?
Yeah.
Really? Mm-hmm. You're going to answer 30 plus then too.
Yeah, I guess I am. To be fair, I was 21 to 30 though.
Yeah. For Cleveland, give me Mitchell and Darius Garland, so that's 10 right now. Atlanta, give me Trey. Brad Beal for the Wizards, 12. Bulls, DeMar DeRozan, may circle back around. Tyrese Halliburton on the Pacers, so 13.
Okay, I'll agree with that.
I'm skipping over the Knicks. I said the Nets already. I said the Sixers. Miami, I'm going Bam and Jimmy, so 15. Skipping Detroit. After the way the Magic have been playing, I might go Pau Banchero.
Nah,
not yet. But
Anthony Davis is more proven than that.
Mm-hmm. Charlotte, Melo, easy.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm gonna skip Utah for right now, so 16.
Yeah, I wouldn't go anyone there.
I'll go Booker and CP, so 17. Trailblazers, Dame, obviously.
That's probably it.
Maybe Anthony Simons, too.
He's been playing really well, but nah, I don't think over Davis.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Davis had his full potential.
Yeah, Denver, obviously, Nikola Jokic. I put Jamal Murray, so that's 21.
I'm fine with that. We haven't said Ja Morant yet, right?
No, he's the next team. So Ja Morant, I don't want to throw Jaren Jackson in there because he has the same problem as him.
No.
Desmond Bane is right there, in my opinion. Like, he's putting up, like, 30 every other couple games.
I'll check his stats right now.
LA, give me Kawhi and PG.
Right.
So 23. New Orleans, give me Zion and Brandon Ingram, 25. Luka, 26. I'll skip over San Antonio right now. Minnesota, Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns.
Okay. Yeah.
But I want to throw D'Angelo Russell in. Not because I'm wearing his jersey right now, just out of bias. So I think we're at 26, not including D'Angelo Russell. The Kings, Domantas Sabonis may be better than him.
No. I'm not willing to go
It's
there.
close.
Even though Sabonis is good.
Okay, so I'm at 27 right now. I didn't even say the Warriors yet, so Steph.
That's probably it. To be
28.
Poole.
Yeah, probably
I feel like
Poole. Okay, 29. Shea, Gilgeous-Alexander,
Yeah.
LeBron, obviously, and that's 30. And then Anthony Davis is 31.
Yeah, I mean, if we had to shoot through that list again, you could definitely make an argument for a couple that weren't better than Davis. But yeah, I mean, he's in that threshold, 25 to 35, around there, and it's sad to see that it's been that much of a fall off because with Davis, like, back in 2016, he was in New Orleans and he was young, healthy, a budding star, and he was putting up Wilt Chamberlain numbers, especially per 35-minute stats or whatever. I forget what the number is. Now, to see what he has become, pretty much because of injury and somewhat because of system and situation, yeah, Anthony Davis has had a pretty far fall off. Even though he was really good in the past, he didn't go up to what we thought he was going to be. And now his full potential is smaller than what it was when he was a little bit younger, which is not something that we could have saw coming. Because at this age, you would have expected Davis to be a top 10 bona fide player right now. Even though he would be, he's what, 30? 31, is he? I'm going to look it up right now. But he's obviously not young anymore. But
29.
29, yeah. So even younger than I thought. So yeah, it would be right now that he would be hitting that top 10 peak.
Yeah.
So it's sad to see the ladder go down for him.
It was all at the fault of injury, too. I think, like, if he were healthy,
yeah,
I wouldn't be saying this.
And just, dude, this Lakers situation right now, it's so chaotic. I just don't see how anyone could really succeed in this besides LeBron James.
Yeah.
LeBron is LeBron.
I know I'm wearing his jersey, too, and I don't want to go on a side tangent, but, like, they really messed up with the young talent they had from
100%.
D'Angelo Russell because they traded him for Lonzo Ball, and they kind of had to because of, like, the off-the-court stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, they had Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram, and they packaged them and Josh Hart for Anthony Davis. And then they got rid of Kyle Kuzma.
Way too early, and he's a good player.
Yeah.
He's a solid player.
I mean, I get most of them were with LeBron other than D'Angelo Russell, but D'Angelo Russell and LeBron would have been an excellent pairing.
Yeah,
like an excellent pairing.
Yeah, especially because D'Lo is good in the catch and shoot, so like he doesn't have to take the ball away from LeBron, but then at the same time, when LeBron doesn't have the ball in his hands, you can go to D'Lo. It would be like a little bit worse 2016 Kyrie.
Yeah.
Like, but not saying that's not a knock on D'Lo.
No.
Because Kyrie is a Hall of Fame talent, but yeah, that would be like a notch down from the 2016 Kyrie. That's similar play styles, except Kyrie's more in isolation and D'Lo's more in the pick and roll. That's the only difference.
Yeah, I just hate how they go about like trading all their young guys for all NBA guys.
Yeah, and it was like they went way too in with it, and then they didn't protect their own draft picks that they hadn't used yet.
Yeah, they don't have a draft pick till 27, right?
Right, and like so, not only did they give up all the assets that they had already taken in the draft that were young and hadn't really proven themselves in the league, and they gave it up for gambles. Yeah, that wasn't very smart of them. I mean, especially the Westbrook one, like that looks really bad now. Yeah. And it looks even worse because Westbrook wasn't that good in Washington either. He just wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he put up decent numbers and led them to the 8 seed. They weren't even the 8. They had to get in the play-in, right? Or was there no? There was no play-in that year.
I don't think that there was a play-in that year, but they were the 8.
Because that was 2021. Wasn't that a play-in? Like Golden State lost to the Lakers in that play-in in the West. Who did the hell?
Yeah, it was a play-in.
Yeah, who did they?
2021 was the first year of the play-in.
Yeah, I think Washington was the 10, or they were.
Yeah, I don't remember, but I know that they had to play-in to get in because it was after that was the first season after COVID, right? Because COVID was the last year before the play-in.
Yes,
and after that they added the play-in.
Yes, and like that's just crazy that you would take a gamble on that because he was a declining superstar that didn't really put up impressive numbers, led a weak team to a weak playoff position in the East, in a weak East. And yeah, I mean, that wasn't smart at all. There was no logic really behind that decision.
No.
And they've completely set themselves in a tank. And it's like, I told this to you, Jack. My bold prediction for this coming NBA season, well, not coming anymore. It's obviously here. But the pending trade deadline that looms in a couple months, I think that the Lakers will deal LeBron James away from their team this February would be the deadline. Because it makes the most sense for them right now. This team is going absolutely nowhere. You are hitting a roadblock with LeBron. And don't get it twisted. He's gone. He's not spending out the rest of his career, his playing career.
He just signed 2 years
on a team like that. Like, he's going to get out of that, because he definitely has the opt-outs.
Yeah.
And the thing is, for the Lakers, it makes a ton of sense too, because you don't want to lose LeBron to nothing. You want to get what you can out of him, and you have nothing right now. So you have a golden opportunity to deal him and salvage something from this.
Yes.
Because a pick you can get for LeBron right now, you can get a lot.
Yeah.
There are going to be, any contending team right now, any of them, you could pick 10 contending teams. If they have LeBron James, they move to number 1.
Can't argue that.
He's that type of player, and he's still that type of player.
Especially if he goes to a team in the East, I feel like is going to be his best opportunity. Because outside the Bucks, there's a lot of competitive teams. And if you add that one piece, you're pretty much set.
Yeah. Think about all the teams in the East that would be number 1 with LeBron. Brooklyn, Bucks. Philadelphia. Well, I'm not including Milwaukee.
I was actually thinking, Jack, before you said that, Hawks would be a great addition.
Yeah. Oh, did you say Hawks?
Because they're already playing really well. You got that one huge scoring piece along with Trey. That makes that team very dangerous.
Yeah, I agree with that. So Brooklyn, Philly, Atlanta, Toronto, Boston, Cleveland.
I only don't like that because he went his whole career without being traded, and personally, I think that's one of his biggest accomplishments. Like, I don't want LA to just tarnish that because it's their fault that they put him in a situation.
I don't think it's that much of a tarnish as you'd think. I think if he got traded to a situation and they won a championship,
he had been in Cleveland and asked for a trade, that would have tarnished his career.
Yeah.
Honestly,
everyone would look back
as a free agent to go to Miami was bad enough. And it really wasn't that bad either because he eventually did win another ring with Cleveland and made it to 4 straight championships. So it proved he didn't really even need a super team anyway.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But at this stage in his career, you ask for a trade. He wants another championship. He wants another chance at a run. And you can't really blame him for that.
No, 100%. He's a
because, wherever he's gone, he's been successful, and now he's not. It's not really fair to him that the Lakers put this team in this situation.
Yeah. It just wouldn't sit right, seeing LeBron get traded. That would just be weird.
I 100% agree, but I think it makes the most sense at the same time. I think for both parties, it does.
It does.
And it also doesn't make sense for the Lakers to keep this star and let him walk in 2 years when you can get additional pieces to make your team better in the future.
Right, yeah.
Because like you said, Jack, this team has no present right now.
No.
So you've got to start thinking about the future.
Yep.
And what's also scary is that you've got the Rockets and Thunder who have been building pieces already. So you're already kind of behind them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're behind the 8 ball by far.
So I would like to see LeBron also get traded just for the reason that you can add additional picks, you can get a little bit more younger talent, and sort of go not necessarily into tanking because I think this team is good enough. At least it seems like that they have enough experience where you can get a couple additional pieces. As long as you keep them and don't trade them, which is what they did the first time around, if you let them develop in 2 to 3 years, this team will be back in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. And circling back to the poll, I wanted to get your input because you picked 11 to 20. So I just wanted to get the insight behind that.
So I definitely think it's more in the 15 to 20 range. Here's my thing on Anthony Davis. You brought up his health, and that's been a big issue for him, 100%. You can't argue that. However, in my opinion, Anthony Davis is the 3rd best scoring center in the NBA, behind Jokic and Embiid. And it's really not even close after that, in my opinion. Cat is kind of there, but still not even compared to these guys.
I would put him up there, honestly. He hits the three better than all of them.
Cat behind Davis. And you guys are acting like Davis's career is almost dead in the water. He's still putting up 23 points and 10 rebounds this season.
His shooting splits are not what they used to be.
Averaging a double-double with a terrible team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's nice sort of yes, it's unfortunate that his career hasn't panned out the way that it has, but when he's healthy, he is one of the best players in the NBA. health has been his biggest problem, and that's the reason why I understand why he's dipped below other players. You can't stay healthy. But, Jack, you put him underneath Kawhi and Paul George. Both those guys haven't been healthy either. And at least Davis has led them to the Lakers, helped the Lakers get a championship before Kawhi and Paul George when they went to the Clippers.
I mean, I kind of think for Kawhi especially, it like validates that because they miss like the same amount of time essentially, but I don't know anyone that thinks Anthony Davis is better than Kawhi, personally. And we know he can win a championship too, because we've seen it firsthand. But he's...
Yeah, no doubt. I think it's a lot closer than people think that it is. When you consider their health, when you consider how much... Look, the Lakers would not have won this championship had AD not been traded to them. And I understand it's in the bubble, and everyone wants to make a big deal out of that. But at the end of the day, the Lakers won that championship.
They did.
And that's not a
that if they don't bring AD on board.
I do think the Heat like kind of beat themselves due to size because like no one was getting boards over Davis. Like,
but you also had Bam over Davis, though.
Yeah, but Bam's like 6'10", or like not even. He's like 6'8", and like
he isn't undersized, but he makes up for it with his athleticism, you know. So
and he does, but I just feel like if I was to take those two guys right now, I had to pick between both of them, I'm taking Davis every single time, without a doubt.
With the current, like with their situations, or is this like a perfect scenario?
If this is a perfect scenario, I'm building a roster. This is how I thought about the poll, is which guy would I rather have, not the situation they're in. If I am building a team right now, and I'm looking for the perfect center, and let's say that Embiid and Jokic are both gone, because those are by far the best centers in the NBA. That next pick, I'm 100% taking Anthony Davis.
That's fair, but I was looking at it the same.
I think
Cat over Davis.
Yeah,
I'm leaning that way too.
Taking Davis. It's his scoring ability. It's also his leadership as well, and that's not something that was really talked about because he got hurt after LeBron got hurt, and the whole season taken after that. But he was pretty much carrying the Lakers single-handedly when LeBron got hurt, and was keeping them somewhat afloat until he got hurt.
Yeah.
And that's not, like,
that's fair.
Cat on his own has proven that he can't be a leader to make a team play better.
Yeah.
Like, the Timberwolves needed to bring in Jimmy Butler to be that leader, and Jimmy Butler decided that Cat, and I forget who else was on that team, but basically Jimmy Butler's like, nah, this team isn't good enough to win for me.
Yeah.
Well, that would never be anything that would be questioned on Anthony Davis.
Mm-hmm. I can agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's tough to deny, too.
I mean, yeah, Jimmy exposes you. It's true.
Right.
Okay, let's move to the next poll. This one may take a lot of time, but I ran a poll about Kyrie Irving and regarding his suspension, whether we felt he deserved to be suspended for the tweet of the movie. The polls were pretty much 50-50. It was 57 agree he should have been suspended, and 43% think that he shouldn't have been suspended.
Mm-hmm.
And you two thought he should have been suspended. I did not think so.
Yeah.
And I want to try to conduct this in a non-political way, if possible. So we'll just try.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll see where it goes.
Why don't you go first for that?
Okay. So personally, I thought the whole situation was kind of blown out of proportion. Especially, like, I felt like everyone was really quick to jump on him and, like, call him anti-Semitic, and that never made sense to me because he himself did not say anything. I feel like people acted like he was, like, reading chapters of, like, Mein Kampf aloud.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, I didn't see it that way. I mean, should he have tweeted that? No. If it's so anti-Semitic, why is it on Amazon? Why can you purchase it? Like, why isn't Jeff Bezos getting any slack for it? And me and Aiden, like, were talking about this privately, and I mentioned, like, rap lyrics and guys promoting, like, rap songs, and I showed Aiden a bunch of verses that had similar anti-Semitic slurs into it, and they don't get checked for it, because it's foreseen as normal, but Kyrie is, like, a counterculturalist, and he's kind of like a target for, like, being thrown labels on for stuff he said in the past, how he feels about certain things he didn't put in his body and whatnot. Personally, I think he should have just apologized and paid a fine. And I'm really not as mad about the suspension, but I'm way more mad about the laundry list of things that he has to do in order for him to rejoin the team. I think it's unfair. I think an indefinite suspension is stupid. I think it should have just been 5 games, but no, he has to donate his own money, he has to speak to these people and all that. And I've seen athletes do way worse things and not even get punished for it. And we talk about it all the time. Like there's no like punishments that ever like are consistent. And Kyrie's like a character who gets blamed on for like his motives when there's guys on the same team who really should be questioned for their motives, but don't. And I don't know. That's where I stand. I just think it's inconsistent, blown out of proportion, kind of just like a blaming thing.
Yeah.
Okay. But I want to hear what you guys think.
I'll go quick because my opinion and my emotions aren't super big on this, I guess, for lack of a better word. But I do agree with some of the things that you said, especially about Kyrie's character. Like, I don't think that Kyrie himself is anti-Semitic. I think Kyrie's an amazing person, truly. Like, I think that he's somewhat of a clown and that he comes off super pretentious and coddled, I'd say. But at the same time, I do think that Kyrie has a good heart, and I think he's a good guy. I think he's a good person at the end of the day. However, and I also agree with what you said about, like, if this is anti-Semitic, if this message is bad, why can I buy it on Amazon? I agree with that. Like, that's a question I have too. Because honestly, this piece that Kyrie did put out, it offends a lot of people, and a lot of the stuff in it is probably not good for people to read. Especially for a moldable brain to read, which is like a teenager or an adolescent, 12, around there, which is a wide majority of Kyrie's audience at the same time. And he put that on his story. I believe Kyrie Irving has 15 million Instagram followers. And in that press conference, Kyrie was saying I wasn't, what was the word they used?
Wasn't promoting it.
Promoting. In my opinion, it is promoting, though. Even if it was unintentionally promoted, you promoted this because you put it on your social media platform that has 15 million followers. That's promoting. Anything you put on your social media, that's promoting it.
Okay, what about this, though?
But wait, let me give one example. Like, let's say he posts a picture of a water bottle from Smart Water, but he isn't sponsored by Smart Water. That's still a promotion to Smart Water. That's a free advertisement. So for that piece that he put out, that's what I'm saying. That's a free advertisement for that book. That's a free promotion for that book. That was sort of unintentional. I don't think Kyrie meant to, but he did. Yeah, if that makes sense.
But what do you think about, like, this is really a dark example, and, like, I didn't want to get political, but I think it's a good example. Like, what do you think about the people that, like, put up, like, the bad, like, police body cam footage? Like, I don't think they're promoting the bad behavior. I think they're just promoting awareness instead and, like, condemning it. And I'm not saying Kyrie was openly condemning the documentary. He just wanted a dialect about it. And I think that's the main point of when people, like, expose, like, these bad things, like cancel culture and all that.
Well, here's the thing. I think that you are on the same track as Kyrie Irving. I think that you guys are on the same wavelength, but what you guys are thinking is way too mature and intelligent for social media, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Like, we just live in an era today where people are pretty much on the verge of being brain dead. And, like, when you put something out like that, like, they're just going to completely forget what you were talking about and just, you know what I mean? Like, so I understand that Kyrie was probably trying to have an intelligent, intellectual conversation about it, which probably I can't have because I don't even know what that piece was about or anything really. Yeah. But I do know that there were underlying messages from that were offensive, and, like, that's not good to put out. Just bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, the other part that we haven't talked about yet, and this was certainly a factor, was due to other anti-Semitic stuff that other celebrities that I don't feel like naming because they're not athletes, but you know who I'm talking about, have been saying.
We could say his name, Kanye West. Yeah. We could say his name.
Yeah, that is the first one that comes to mind. There's been other ones as well. Marcus Stroman actually liked a tweet about the documentary that Kyrie posted about, and I haven't heard any flack about him. I mean, obviously basketball stars, especially Kyrie, is much more well-known than Marcus Stroman, so I guess that part makes sense. But I feel like the issue is that when it's come to what Kanye has said, and maybe like, what was it, a week later, Kyrie's posting this stuff, it's not going to fly. And I think that's what the biggest problem that the Nets had with it, and what especially fans had with it as well, is that Kyrie was also saying very similar stuff without actually saying it the way that Kanye was about control of the media, which is, again, it is a complete fallacy that Jewish people have control over media. Like, all of this stuff is complete lies. It's not true. It's stereotyping. And the issue is that while Kyrie was not exactly saying those stereotypes, he was sort of implying them in a very, like, I'm not actually going to imply it, but at least think about it. And the issue is when it's come to all the hate that Jewish Americans have gotten in the last month, at least from Kanye, before that, they've been hated on as a minority group forever. It sort of is not going to look great for Kyrie, and it doesn't look good for the Nets either.
Yeah.
So some sort of discipline had to be made. Now, you can argue that the discipline went too far. The list was extensive. It sort of felt like that maybe he just should have paid a fine. Sort of what happened with Deshaun Jackson, where he had to go to, I believe it was the Jewish American Museum, although I'm not 100% sure, but something along those lines, pay a fine and then be back. I think that whatever the Nets want to do, it's up to them. They're the organization. The players have to respect the organization's wishes, either positively or negatively. So, I mean, at the end of the day, the teams have the most power.
Yeah.
That's something that we've known since day one of sports.
I actually love how you brought up the Deshaun Jackson incident, because I thought that was like the perfect punishment for the crime. It wasn't too extreme. Like, he learned his lesson and eventually everyone moved on. But I don't think I'm really saying anything, like, you don't hear it being said, but like, we all kind of know it. The NBA is the most progressive sports league in all of the world.
Right. Yeah.
And I guess they have to come down way harder because
to uphold that image.
Yeah. But I don't know. I just think, like, at what expense, like, is it doing you any good?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, look, talking about any of this stuff is very hard because you can't get in the mindset of the person. You can only go with what they've been putting out. Right. But like I said, it just all connects together where it felt like the wrong time for Kyrie to be saying anything that could be seen as anti-Semitic, considering what Kanye has said, considering the hate that has been spread on Twitter in recent weeks.
Right.
It just felt like a very bad time to put that out. And I 100% agree with you, both of you, that Amazon should not have touched this documentary at all.
Right.
They should have promoted it. There should have been no involvement by Amazon. They should be getting a lot of pushback as well. The issue is, I mean, again, not to get too political, but we all rely on Amazon. All of us have bought stuff on Amazon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Like, you can't, it's hard to push back against a corporation. It's much easier to push back against a person.
Right.
Especially when that person can be punished in some sort of way.
Yeah.
Now, and this is sort of what we've talked about with other athletes as well, who have done things where they should get punished for or have gotten punished for. Kyrie is one of the best ball handlers in NBA history. He is one of the best. When he can stay on the court, he's one of the best players in the NBA right now.
Yeah.
So if this was somebody else, they would have gotten cut. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah, like that
but
guy.
Because it's Kyrie Irving,
Myers
he's
Leonard,
going to stay on the team. The Nets are going to give him multiple chances. Whether or not they should, that can be up to our listeners. However, the Nets will keep giving him opportunities because he's such a great basketball player.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think, like, guys shouldn't have that privilege above each other. I think, like, you did mention Kanye, but, like, I sent you this video of him, and they were talking about, like, separating, like, the art from the artist, because, like, I'm really gonna go off topic, but a lot of artists are, like, really messed up in the head. Like, Vincent Van Gogh cut off his ear and sent it to someone. Like, that's not normal behavior. Like, these guys express their emotions in, like, ways that, like, we can't understand because they're, like, really in tune with, like, how they feel, and that's how they present it to the world. And even though they're saying bad things, like, they made a lot of, like, great, like, not, like, a subjective, like, work. They made, like, objectively, like, great work. And, like, I'm, like, a really big Kanye fan. Like, I think, like, indisputably, he's on, like, Mount Rushmore of rap. And I think he's the best artist of this generation. Yes, he's not new to controversy. Like, he ran up on the VMA stage with Taylor Swift and all that. Like, we know he's an asshole sometimes, but, like, he made, like, amazing music, and it shouldn't be taken away from him. Like, you gotta just, like, take the good with the bad, and, like, his first album was, like, a top 10 rap album ever, like, undisputedly. And, like, are we just gonna, like, completely, like, bash that because of a couple instances of things that he said or did in the past, or even recently?
Yeah, well, I think a better word is erase it.
You go first, and then I'll respond.
No, that's all I got. I think that he touched on a lot there. I'll let you respond. Yeah,
I think that when it comes to separating the artist from work, the issue is, like, for example, and this is, again, completely off topic, but someone that has been talked about a lot is Michael Jackson because of his shady history as well, allegations against him. The thing is, Michael Jackson, now that he is passed, he's not directly getting any money, right? Where Kyrie, the fans are giving the tickets to the Nets. He's still going to get paid by the Nets. So it's hard to, like, sort of like him as a fan and want to give money to the Nets because you know it's going directly to him. Kanye, same thing. If you still listen to his music, he's still getting paid for that. At least for now. We'll see what happens. But my point is that, yes, I feel like it's almost easier to separate the artist from the work when that artist, when that athlete, whoever, is either no longer playing or participating in the thing that got them all that money. Athlete-wise, one person that's often talked about recently is Lawrence Taylor, who's a completely horrible person, objectively. However, he was a great football player. O.J. Simpson, same thing. People loved him as a football player. I still rank him top 10 in running backs in NFL history. But it's easier to say that because of the fact that he's no longer a player, that he will not get money from the NFL. Where when you're doing stuff currently, it's a little bit harder, I would say, as a fan, to feel like that you can listen to someone's work, watch someone play basketball, and not feel like you're doing something a little bit wrong.
Yeah, I didn't think about it that way, like the whole, like, them profiting off of it. And it's definitely a good point to add, but, like, I'm not taking what you say out of context when you, like, what I'm getting at is you don't think he should be cut, right?
No, because there's a couple of things. One, the documentary's on Amazon, so literally anyone can post it. The other thing is that even though his apologies seem very half-hearted, it still looks like he's making the effort that the Nets want him to do. And if the Nets feel like he's making that effort, I don't see why he should be cut. Now, if he was completely blowing off the Nets and sort of have done what he did when he was with the Celtics and just leave the organization entirely, then I would understand him being cut. Mm-hmm. Because that would feel like that he's almost giving up on his team, which is something that Kyrie's done in the past as well. And I think that's something that we don't want to, like, discuss because it is a little bit off topic. But Kyrie's also been a very questionable teammate, and that's something that I brought up before. So there's also the fact of, will he desert the team entirely now that this has happened? And at that point, then it's completely fair to ask the Nets, should you keep this guy around? Especially because they also just fired Steve Nash. So they're going through a complete culture change in that aspect. I'd be shocked if KD doesn't get traded. So do you really want this guy who's a liability on your team to still be around as, like, the main focal point of your team? And I think that's something the Nets are going to have to figure out in the next couple of months. And people may or may not like what the answer is.
I do agree, but I think it will go under the rug because I've alluded to it many times. They have way bigger fish to fry in coaching and a guy that likes to pass the ball a lot. So
yeah,
I think
and here's the whole thing. I feel like had Kyrie been on a different team, this wouldn't be talked about as much. But because he's on a team that has struggled a lot, that is in New York, which is one of the biggest markets in sports, that now the coach fired, and there was rumors they're going to bring in Ime Udoka, which would have been a complete disaster. Thankfully, they didn't do that because that would have just been a PR nightmare.
Yeah, for that.
But you've got all this other stuff going on. You've got the fact that Kyrie also was very adamant about not getting the vaccine. Again, don't want to say whether that's right or wrong. That's his opinion. He can do what he wants. But at the end of the day, it did hurt the team. Right. And was something that was talked about from a sports aspect of him letting down his team.
when everyone else
he's also left the Celtics, which I've talked about before and this episode. So you've got all this other baggage with Kyrie with the Nets. So it's just one more thing that's going to be talked about.
All right, so we'll move on to the next poll. Oh yeah, this is one of the most interesting ones, and this was a landslide in decision. The poll was, has the overall quality of the NBA regressed in the last few years? And it was 80-20 yes to no.
Yeah, I definitely think it has. And I'm not sure what it really is ultimately, but for me, it's poor officiating. I think that the rules in general are so just weird nowadays. And I feel like if we resulted back to, not necessarily all the way back to the 90s or even the early 2000s, but if we just refined the rules a little bit, just took a step back and really made the rule book simpler and made it easier to officiate, that we'd have a better quality of game. Because the problem with today's game is it's either officiated way too softly, meaning there are too many fouls, there's not enough contact being allowed, or there's way too much contact being allowed, where there are clear and obvious fouls that are just, for whatever reason, missed. And I'm not really sure why that is, but it has been really hard for me to watch NBA basketball games that didn't include the Sixers, to be honest with you. And that's purely, I'm watching the Sixers purely for an emotional reason.
Yeah.
I'm invested in the Sixers emotionally. I'm not as invested in the NBA emotionally as I am in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to say the MLB because the MLB is in the same boat as the NBA.
Personally, I think this is a sentiment that isn't really talked about, but everyone feels. I think a lot of the fans view the players as brats now.
I agree.
And I'm not saying they're right or wrong. It's just we're not going to get we're not going to cheer for these guys 24/7. They walk over the commissioner, they do whatever they want. Guys can really get anything and go to any team they want now, and I think that makes it not exciting anymore.
Right.
And because you kind of the clicks, who wants to go play with who and all that, so it's not really exciting. The whole style has changed, and Steph is a reason for it, but I don't think he was the tipping point that made the quality regress, because I personally like how 3-pointers are getting taken at the clip they're getting taken at. But I think it's another thing that doesn't really get talked about, but the dribbling moves, guys carry, walk, double dribble to the point where you can't emulate the same dribble moves as the guys you like on TV anymore, because you're going to get called every single possession.
And I want to jump in real quick about the travel. When you watch college and high school basketball, it is so blatant when someone travels. So clear and obvious. Mm-hmm. But in the NBA, the rule is so weird. And it's so hard to assess that in real time. So in the NBA, I'm not going to lie, I'm watching a game and the refs miss a travel and I'm like, honestly, I missed that too. Mm-hmm. And it's literally a post on social media that everyone is flaming the referee, and I'm first time that I watched that, I didn't see it either. Yeah. To be honest. And it's hard to decipher, with this gather step and the 0 step, all that. Mm-hmm. It's so hard. But in college and high school, it's just evident. You get 2 steps. You pick up your dribble, you get 2 steps.
Yeah.
And then you have to pivot or,
And a direct, effect to this is, there's way more guys putting up 20 points per game. It's a lot easier to score now because the refs favor the offense inadvertently.
No, the entire rule book favors offense, and it's and that's so fucked up. Sorry, that's messed up.
Say it. I don't give a fuck.
That's not right at all, because the rule book should completely balance the game.
Yeah,
that's how it is in the NFL. That's how it is in the MLB. Mm-hmm. The rulebook balances the game. Even though the MLB isn't that good either, the rulebook still balances the game in that sense.
Yeah. And remember we were talking Anthony Davis, in the 90s, and there was a player that got injured a lot. Do you think you could name 30 players that caliber back then that would compare to a guy like Anthony Davis? No, because there's like a lot more superstars now because like everyone's scoring like way more than they used to. And, like, it's just way too much to keep up with.
Yeah, and another thing that I think has regressed the NBA quality is NBA Twitter and social media in general, because I feel like everything is under a microscope and the players and teams are under such duress at all times in terms of being labeled as certain things. And that world is super toxic and just unenjoyable. You know, I hate going on Twitter for NBA news and stuff. I love it for the NFL. I think the NFL Twitter is more funny and relaxed and loose, where NBA Twitter is just super picky.
I think it's always been like that because, like, the proximity of the seats. Like, in the NFL, like, the closest people are, like, 20 yards away from the sideline.
Yeah.
But, like, you can touch the players in basketball.
Yeah,
and, like,
right.
you just get way too comfortable.
Yeah. Okay.
It's always been there. It's just, like, it's heightened now.
Yeah. And I do agree with your point about the players being labeled as soft or coddled babies, pretty much. And there's definitely something to be said about that, I feel like, because it's the entitlement, I think, of NBA athletes. And by entitlement, I mean the fact that you think you can walk over a team. I mean, the easy comparison or player to use for that is Ben Simmons. I mean, it's just that it's the easiest guy. Why did you feel so entitled that because of a few comments being made that upset you, that you completely took out of context, that you were able to create that entire debacle out of that? I mean, it's tough. Like, think about in the NFL, even Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz had crap said about him at every turn. You know, he went through that season in 2019 when there was a rat in the locker room. We don't know who it was, but saying that Carson Wentz wasn't a good leader and didn't have the locker. But there's something to be said that Carson Wentz didn't just turn around in that moment or a week later and say, I want out. There's something to be said about that. Even though I don't think Carson Wentz is mentally strong or anything like that, he has more of a backbone than Ben Simmons. And I feel like that's a good comparison to make. I think that players in the NFL and the MLB don't put up a bunch of drama and a bunch of nonsense that is just difficult to keep up.
And another like point of that is like Zion Williamson. Like he essentially did the same thing. Eventually he like came back, but like he never got any slack for like trying to like go to a winning team after not even playing 100 games.
Yeah, like not even proving himself. Really.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're the team that drafted you?
Mm-hmm.
You're number one overall? You're going to do like that?
He kind of looks like an ass too because they're playing well.
Yeah, they played really well without him. You know what I mean? Like they were impressive without him. And it was like when they were playing without him, the entire time you're thinking this team's going to be really good with Zion.
Mm-hmm. And they are right now.
Yeah, and I think that Zion just like woke up and decided to commit to it.
Yeah. And Aiden, I want to get your insight because I think you disagreed with this. I think you said that the quality did not regress, so I want to hear this insight.
Yeah, I understand that there's a lot of issues with the NBA. Don't get me wrong, there definitely is. But I love where the NBA is going, where it feels like the super team era is finally over. Because I feel like that's what really, to me, as not a huge basketball fan, but someone that's still very interested in the NBA, it really just didn't make me interested as a fan. When every year it was either the Heat making it, and then it was Cleveland, and then it was the Warriors. And that era is finally done. And there is just superstars on almost every team throughout the entire league. I mean, even the Bucks, which is considered small market, you got Giannis. In Portland, you got Lillard, who still won't leave no matter what options are better for him. You've got just all these teams. The Heat, which is a team that they've been successful. Like, they've got a couple of championships. And yes, obviously the super team that was made between Wade and LeBron and Chris Bosh helped. But even now that they're not a super team, they're still very competitive in a smaller market. So it's just, to me, it's so much more fun to watch the talent be spread out around the league. And that's just not something that happens in every sport. The NFL's finally got into it. Major League Baseball kind of has, but there's still a huge gap between the top team and the bottom team. And the NBA, there's only like 5 really, really bad teams, and the rest of them still have a shot at making the playoffs. And I just really love how the NBA's done that. I also think that the play-in has helped a lot with that as well. I mean, yes, the lower seeds will never win a championship. I really doubt that will ever happen. But it's just fun to see a team that's considered the 10th seed get a chance to make it to the playoffs because there's not that much difference between the 10th and 7th seed.
Yeah.
So I think that in those ways, the NBA has become a lot more fun to watch.
I can definitely see them turning a new leaf. But I don't think the leaf is completely turned yet because I agree with you that the super team era of that NBA was, I mean, it was entertaining to watch in a way, but at the same time boring.
It was, here's the thing, it was fun in the playoffs. It wasn't fun in the regular season. And even casual fans, it sort of turned you off. Like by that fourth Warriors-Cleveland series, I watched the end of game 1 and that was it.
Yeah, right. Because
I would consider myself I'm a big Sixers fan, but outside of that, I'm just a casual basketball fan.
Yeah, and then the fact that it got followed up by Kawhi's run immediately said something too. Like that was in a very entertaining playoffs and regular season in general.
Well, and I think that Toronto run was the beginning to the end of the super team because it proved that you can sign a star on a 1-year contract as long as you have a decent roster set up and win a championship.
Yeah.
So I think in that way it sort of showed, okay, we just need a star and a decent roster behind them. And I'm not to say that the Bucks aren't totally talented behind Giannis, but the Bucks started to do the same thing where you got your young superstar and build around him. Yeah. And that's something every team in the NBA can do.
Yeah, that's like what Charlotte is doing now with LaMelo.
Transitioning to the next one, this was interesting because it came from my favorite player, D'Angelo Russell. He posted a tweet over the summer, and it said the NBA is full of athletes, not basketball players. Mm-hmm. And we had 50% of the people agree with this completely, 19% of the people disagree with this, and 31% of the people partly agree with this. I agreed with this statement, Jack disagreed with this statement, and Aiden agreed with this statement too. So you want to start?
Yeah, I'll definitely start because one of the most aggravating comments I've ever heard in my life was when James Harden said Giannis is only good because he is tall and fast or whatever. And
when did he say that?
That was in like 2018.
Yeah, I do remember that comment.
I wanted to rip my hair out in that moment. And I love James Harden. James Harden is one of my favorite players ever. But I was very, very upset at that time because I do love Giannis too. And here's the thing that D'Lo's saying. So D'Lo is a traditional basketball. D'Angelo Russell is very in tune with the game as a whole. And I do hear what he's saying about athletes versus basketball players. However, you can't tell me a guy like Giannis, who's the poster boy for this athlete label, you can't tell me Giannis isn't as in tune with the game of basketball as D'Angelo Russell is. Giannis is a very smart player, and he's come to learn and adapt to the game truly. And that's a testament to him. I don't agree with the statement that the league is full of athletes and not basketball players. I just can't agree with that, especially when you're talking about guys like Giannis. I'm not really sure who you would throw after him. If you want to throw Zion, I don't agree with that necessarily either.
Well, the thing about Giannis is, like, before he, like, really came into his own, like, he was strictly an athlete. Like, he got into the league from athleticism, and, like, he was kind of, like, the rare example of, like, the transition into, like, a pure basketball player. So that's where I stand with him. But Zion, I think he's a straight athlete. Mm-hmm. I don't think it can
be. I don't think so. I think Zion is a very good basketball player. I think he's a very smart basketball player too. And it may seem like Zion just wants to go to his brute strength, but I think that's his last resort, and that's what he wants to do when they need to get points. But Zion, I think, has shown this year especially that he can fit into a scheme well also. And I think that he's showing now that he's learning the art of passing. And it's not necessarily that you have to be Chris Paul, putting up 10 assists, but you have to anticipate when a guy's cutting, when he's going to be open. You have to anticipate reading the defense. If a double team is coming at you, you have to anticipate their rotations and find the open guy on the wing or in the corner. And I think that Zion is really coming into his own with that. And I don't think that's unachievable in any sense. I think that just I think that what separates guys like Giannis and Zion from the other guys who don't pan out like that is a talent gap. I just straight up think that some guys who are brought in as projects just aren't as talented as people thought they were. And those dudes get weeded out. And those dudes are not true basketball players like D'Angelo Russell's talking about. And the league is not full of guys like that. Guys like Giannis and Zion who bud into the game, who, like you said, maybe they were athletes, but they grew. And now they are basketball. That's kind of my stance on it.
Yeah, so I think like a lot of guys, when they come into the league, they come in through their athleticism and like...
Yeah, but think about this too. Like, what was D'Angelo Russell getting drafted from the Lakers? That was a project.
Yeah, but no one was looking at his athleticism.
Yeah, but still, I mean, it was a project. Giannis was a project. D'Angelo Russell was a project. Like, these guys who get drafted they're all projects. And like, there are guys who, like D'Angelo Russell, who are traditionalist basketball players who don't pan out also. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
It's a talent gap.
I see like a whole bracket of players like in this league, like the Ben Simmonses, like the Matisse Thybulles, the Kelly Oubre's, who like, they have no shooting touch.
Yeah.
They're strong. They're fast. Like they jump out the gym.
Yeah.
Like
no true dribbling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another example of that you left out, I think, of like a guy who came in as an athlete and became like a really true basketball player is Zach LaVine. Because that guy is one of the greatest dunkers ever. He wasn't really known for anything besides dunking for a while.
Yeah.
And then he became like one of the most all-around guys in
That's
the
a
league.
good one. Yeah, I agree with that. That's definitely a good one.
But the point, like, I think he's making there is like, why is the dunk contest a thing? Like, none of the good basketball players like going. It's all the athletes. Like,
yeah, but the dunk contest is purely just an entertainment thing on All-Star Weekend. It's just a festivity.
Yeah, true. But like, the whole spectacle of like basketball is like the athleticism portion.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do think that's what separates basketball. Like, basketball is more of a display of athleticism. Like, football is a combination of a lot of things, but basketball it's sort of like a dancer or a ballet. Like, it's a show off kind of thing. Not in a bad way, but you're showing off your athleticism. I think that, and it's the same thing with shooting a three too. Like, that's the athleticism that takes. Shooting a three. Like, that's insane. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Especially an NBA three, especially like the 3-point contest when you're running around the arc. That takes up a lot of energy. So incredibly athletic. But yeah, dunk contests, same thing. But I do like that they implemented the skills challenge, I guess, for guys like D'Lo. Who are
even though he's never been in it.
I know, yeah. I don't think that they necessarily want to participate in that anyway.
All right, Aiden, floor is yours.
Yeah, so the reason that I agreed with the statement, it's not necessarily a knock on the NBA players right now. Like, I feel like that's the way that D'Lo was trying to make it. But the way I saw it is this. One of my favorite parts about college basketball is that you have guys that are completely unathletic that will not make it to the NBA because they don't have the athleticism. But what they do have is they have the knowledge of where to be on the court. Not that NBA players don't have that knowledge, but when you're that athletic, you don't have to be that knowledgeable. Now, in the NBA in the past, and I hate sounding like that guy that brings up the past NBA because it's not comparable, but in NBA history, you didn't have these really athletic guys. You had to have very smart NBA players to create those shots because of the style of play. And I feel like the style of play has really opened up that you can just be a straight athlete with very good basketball skills, and it'll make you better than everyone else. My favorite example for this, and this hasn't been brought up, is Tyrese Maxey. Because yes, Tyrese Maxey is a great basketball player, but the reason that he's a great basketball player is because he's just a freak athlete. His speed is unbelievable. That's not something that would have translated to the NBA 20, 30 years ago. But it translates now because everyone else is fast. He's just a little bit faster. So I think that when you look at the NBA from that level, the athleticism has gotten so much higher that these athletes who become good basketball players now look great because of the way that the style play is done.
Mm-hmm. I can agree with that, definitely, then. Yeah, when you look at it from that standpoint, 100%. And I was definitely looking at it from the standpoint of, like, that tweet was a knock on Giannis. On guys like Giannis, which I can't get behind. I love basketball. I love all basketball players, so I can never get behind like knocking, like creating a certain section of them and just knocking them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing about college basketball, like, you're able to play a zone, which you can't do in the NBA. So obviously it creates more chances for unathletic basketball players to just stand below, which you don't really have that opportunity in the NBA. But I do miss, just that center that you would bring off the bench. I guess the only guy you really have now is Boban, just with the height, because he's not that athletic, but he'll get you that rebound. He'll get you that tough block.
Yeah.
I love that about college basketball, and it's just not really something I really see in the NBA anymore. And I feel like that's just because all these guys are so much more fit that those opportunities aren't there for guys that, you're just stuffing as a shot blocker.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think it's too wrong to say that, and I've said this to Jack multiple times too, that I don't think it's wrong to say that college basketball is more of the traditional way that basketball is supposed to be played. And then the NBA has become an athletic spectacle. I don't think that that's necessarily wrong.
Yeah, that's sort of what you just said. That was sort of my thought when I voted for that.
Yeah.
Because I do remember that Harden tweet about Giannis. And I totally disagreed with that as well. Yeah. Because you can be as athletic as hell, but you can't be athletic and also score 25 points and get 10 assists and 10 rebounds and however many assists he was getting in the NBA if you're not a great basketball player.
Yeah.
Like, this is not possible.
And he's proven it now that he has multiple MVPs, multiple depoys, and a ring.
Yeah.
And a finals MVP. So
right. No, and I mean, that showed that the playoff series, I remember, I forget what year it was, but it was when no one could even pronounce his name, and he just went off against the Hawks.
2016, I remember that.
Straight up demoralized them. Literally looked like what James Harden was supposed to do in the playoffs has never really done. What Giannis was doing in that series, and it put him on the map.
Yeah.
And that was a Giannis who had really just figured out how to play basketball at an NBA level.
Yeah.
The Bucks were not that good of a team either.
No, they were not. I mean, they had young Middleton too, though. Yeah, like, that was just the start
they had a couple good pieces, but not what they are now.
Right? Yeah, like they grew into just superstardom, pretty much.
Right. So Giannis, and I think that's the other thing, that we knock them as athletes, but they're athletes that have figured out how to translate that athleticism to basketball.
Yep.
Which I also, going back to the last ball, is why I think the game has become so much better, is because now you're seeing guys that are willing to use their athleticism to be good basketball players. Where before I feel like there was more like, hey, we're just going to take this like at a slower pace. Curry obviously opened that up, but even during that Curry time, it still felt like that there was this weird transition of, we don't really like Curry because he's just an athletic guy that knows how to shoot. Where now it feels like the entire NBA is athletic guys that are using those basketball skills.
So, I don't got any more polls, but do you guys want to touch on the World Series, like, really quickly?
Yeah, we can do that real quick.
Yeah.
So, it was a great series overall. I thought, like, the quality of that series was incredible. I thought the playoffs this year was insane. A big round of applause to all the teams that competed. And I think it was capped off with a cherry by the World Series. That was a great series. And, we had a lot of hope as Phillies fans, up 2-1. And then I think that the Astros really took a stranglehold. They got their footing. We pushed them, but they got their footing and pushed back, and they were able to take it. I think that was just a better team beating a worse team, at the end of the day. The Astros were built for a World Series. They have an insane bullpen. They have an insane lineup who didn't even hit that well in the series. And they still put up good run numbers. Not necessarily blowing up the scoreboard, but enough runs to win a lot of games, and they proved that. So, a round of applause to the Astros. Like, I honestly, obviously the cheating, all that, and their fans are annoying, but the team itself this year, round of applause to them. I think that they're fine. I don't really have a problem with them.
Yeah. I want to start off by saying that Jeremy Pena kid is so good.
He's going to be an incredible baseball player for years to come.
They got someone in him.
Yeah.
I want to give every single member of the Philadelphia Phillies a round of applause.
Absolutely, yeah. Uh-huh.
I don't condone any of the people shitting on Reese, Nick. They sucked. They were terrible. And you guys don't like Reese, and you talk about how he's a bum all the time, but what if I told you 9 months ago he was going to hit 6 home runs in the postseason? Would you believe me?
Nah,
you would have smacked me.
Definitely.
But,
yeah, no.
They all stepped up Now, do I personally think Nick stepped up? No, but
he did though, and
a little bit.
No. Not a little bit. He did.
Okay.
Big time.
All right.
Big time.
All right, my bias is creeping in, but everyone played a part.
Everyone did
to get
everyone.
Yeah.
A 29-32 team to the World Series.
Right. Yeah.
Like. You can't really write that. I mean, like,
and you didn't even mention the bullpen yet, too. Like that was an insane effort.
Like they collapsed at the end, but there was that stretch of like 16 innings in the playoffs where they didn't allow a run.
Right.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was. I forget if it was the World Series.
No, it was the playoffs in general.
Yeah, it was in general, which is just incredible to have a streak where the Phillies bullpen for the last 2-3 years was historically bad. Like record-breaking blown saves, high ERA, to now becoming a trustful piece of that team, which is a huge turnaround. So I 100% agree with that.
That team was just way better than us, like you said.
Yeah.
Like we had the best player in the series, but they had us in every other thing.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't even know if we had the best player. Alvarez might have been the best player.
That home run was. I mean, here's the thing. I know that we're wrapping up, so I don't want to get too much in debate. But do you guys think that Wheeler should have been pulled in that situation?
No.
Not at all.
No.
You're saying it in the moment, too. Like, why are you pulling him?
Yeah.
You know, that was a dumb decision. Rob pulled all the right buttons.
Yeah. Here's what I will say. This is my opinion on it. I'm not mad that Wheeler was pulled, and it's only because he had walked Altuve and then allowed to hit to Pena, and it's first and third with no outs. Like, yes, he hit the double play, but it also felt like that the tide was almost shifting on Wheeler. Mm-hmm. So I'm not mad about that. I'm mad that they brought in Jose Alvarado because Alvarado had really struggled in the World Series. He'd already been in a very tough situation and hit Alvarez to walk in a run in a prior game. So now you're facing the same guy in a very tense situation. It just felt like the things are going to go wrong. And it was the pitch that nearly hit Alvarez. Then there was the one outside, and it just felt like something bad was about to happen.
Yeah.
So I feel like I know you want to go with the lefty-lefty matchup in that situation, but sometimes you just have to ignore that and just go with your best pitcher. And at that point, the best bullpen pitcher was Anthony, like by far.
Yeah. And
so I feel like you just have to go with don't look at a matchup. Just go with your gut. And in that situation, my gut was telling me you need to go with Anthony.
All right, so you guys got anything else?
Not at the moment. I mean, college football's going pretty crazy. I will say that. Take a look at the polls. As of right now, there's 4 undefeated teams left. 2 of them are Ohio State, Michigan. So one of them isn't going to be there. So it's going to be interesting to see which 4th team sneaks in.
Yeah, to be continued. All right, so we'll see you guys next Saturday. We upload every Saturday at 2 p.m. So be on the lookout. All right, see you. If you made it to the end, enjoy this bonus clip.
Like they just put him in the pick and roll, switched off him, and then made him, do the extra work pretty much, which is recover off of that switch.
And he can't guard smaller guys because everyone just
goes in for fouls. I mean, he does foul a lot. Like he that one on Morant, that was a foul. I'm sorry, that was a foul.
Like it was only a foul because he jumped. Only because he jumped.
It was called late though. Like he hand checked him on the hip. I mean, it's a foul. Like, I'm sorry. It was really late.
Yeah.
And NBA refs are still horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
I hate them.
Hey, you want to do a quick test real quick?
Yeah, sure. Ready?
Yeah.
All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
All right.